Yo, holy smokes, we're back with another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC video. I'm your host, Jose Rocks, and today we're going to be getting into 5 moves that you should consider on every team if you want to find success in VGC. So these moves are pretty much, I think, are pivotal that you have at least maybe 3 of the 5, or at least if you can fit all 5 of them, then you really setting yourself up for success. But I do believe that these 5 moves or types of moves are able to propel you into the next stage. This video is going to be pretty much for people who are new to VGC and you really want to get good at the game, and you really want to figure out ways that you're able to compete with some of the other players that are pretty good in the format, right? So before we get into the 5 moves I think that are the most pivotal, we're going to go over a couple honorable mentions. So these honorable mentions are going to be moves that are also really good that you can fit on your team, but it's almost impossible to fit all of the honorable mentions on your team as well as the 5 I think that are pretty much required to find success in VGC, right? So to start our honorable mentions off, I want to go with Helping Hand. So Helping Hand, if you think about Helping Hand is really good in a format, especially when you have like a lot of users of it. Some of the more common uses of Helping Hand are going to be things like Clefairy, right? Also Clefable, or Big Clef, they like to call it. It's really good in this format. You also have things like Incineroar that gets Helping Hand, right? So Helping Hand, what it does is it gives your teammate a 1.5 boost on their whatever attack they're going for, whether it's a physical attack or a special attack, and it allows them to deal more damage. Why this is really useful is the fact that a lot of good VGC players like to count their specific mons in order to survive like certain hits. Like let's say you have a Rillaboom, right? And you know that your Rillaboom, you give it enough investment, it's always gonna survive like a Flare Blitz from Talonflame. Just speaking, right? Let's just use that as example. Talonflame uses Flare Blitz onto Rillaboom, right? Your Rillaboom is always calced to survive that Flare Blitz, even if the Talonflame is max attack adamant, right? But what you can do to mess that up is like have a Clefairy or something next to your Talonflame, and now you go for a Helping Hand into your Flare Blitz, and now you're able to pick up that KO when your opponent might not have been expecting it to get KO, right? So that's something that really helps out in a lot of like messing up damage calcs, and being able to pick up one-hit KOs in situations where a Pokemon, if Rillaboom was able to survive, guess what it's able to do? It's able to U-turn out and now get back in the following turn or later on in the match and get another fake out plus reset like grassy terrain, right? So that's the difference between being able to knock that Pokemon out to propel the game forward or allowing it to reset and come back in and disrupt you some more, right? So Helping Hand is a really good option for, you know, removing certain specific mons from the field, and it's being able to pick up those KOs and get that extra bit of burst damage, right? So next for our honorable mentions, we're gonna put Helping Hand right here. Just call that category Helping Hand. Our next on our honorable mentions is going to be pivoting moves. And what do I mean by pivoting moves? Now this is a category of moves, so it's not specific to just one. But pivoting moves are things like U-turn. Let's see. So we get a U-turn user like Dragapult. Then you have Volt Switch, which is another pivoting move. Really good on specific mons. We're in Regulation H, so we're only going to pick Pokemon from that category, right? Let's think of Palmot. Palmot's a pretty fast Volt Switcher, right? Let's see, what else? Flip Turn. Basculegion is famous right now for going for flip turns in this format. It's one of the strongest water types. So being able to like pivot in and out with that is really good. And also, of course, Parting Shot. We're going to go with Incineroar again for this because it's the most famous user of Parting Shot. So like U-turn allows you to get out of danger, especially when you're using it on like a faster mon. So U-turn and pivoting moves work very well on faster mons and slower mons. And here's how. So U-turn, like Volt Switch on faster mons, allows these things to be kind of like untouchable. If you lead them into a situation where they're not positioned properly and you receive some threats on the field, you're able to, you know, pivot out. Especially these two, they're very good at it because they're ghost types, so you can't fake them out to stop them from pivoting. But Palmot as well, you know, probably likes to run like Focus Sash or like a Ghost Terror, so it's able to, you know, go for pivoting moves as well. So pivoting is really good with faster mons because you're able to get out of danger. Now, where it works with slow mons is if you're setting up Trick Room, or let's say that you have something that you need to get on the field, but you don't want to switch it in and take damage, right? Like let's say it's a frail Pokemon, right? And you can't just hard switch out. Pivoting moves that with slower mons allow you to pivot at the end of the turn and get that Pokemon in safely without taking any damage, right? That's why, you know, U-turn on like Rillaboom is just very good because it's able to pivot slow, whereas Dragapult is able to pivot fast, right? Same with Parting Shot. Occasionally you might see like a fast Parting Shot from like a max speed Incineroar, so it can drop your attack before you can do damage to something else, right? And then it'll just bring in something that resists the attack. So imagine that, you know, they might be going for like a water movement to Instant, right? And then you outspeed it, right? And then you switch in a grass type, plus you dropping this attack or a special attack. Now it's taking a resisted hit plus one that's already reduced damage by a Parting Shot. So that's why fast Parting Shot can be good. And slow Parting Shot is Incineroar is good at taking hits, and it allows you to safely get in a sweeper once it pivots out, right? And then also it resets Incineroar's Intimidate and its Fake Out, which is just really good for pivoting. So pivoting moves are really essential. Again, these are the honorable mentions because, like I said, these aren't required to find success, but they do help you in a lot of different, you know, ways where you really need stuff like that to assist you with winning games. All right, so our next honorable mention is going to be Substitute. Let me make sure I spelled that right. All right, Substitute. So Substitute is a really good move, and pretty much almost every Pokemon in the format can learn it, right? Substitute, I think, in my opinion, is really good on Dondozo. Also, what are some other common users of Substitute right now? It was really good in the format with Landorus Eye because it was one of the best Substitute users. But now we're in a format that doesn't have all of these, right? But think of something like Scarlet. Like Scarlet can get Substitute plus like Bulk Up and Leftovers. That makes Scarlet extremely difficult to deal with. I think you do want to always run Shadow Sneak, but if you do, you can just run Bitter Blade, Substitute, and this is just an example of a set, right? Substitute, Bulk Up, and Protect. Now, as long as it's not really anything that's immune to fire in the format right now, so you're pretty good at. There's like not any Flash Fire users outside of like Cerulege and Armorwounds, right? But other than that, you can just have like water types to deal with it on your team because that's how you build a balanced team. But I'm just using this as an example. Substitute is really good at just, you know, stopping, you know, damage from coming into you when you're going to take big hits. And also when you're very bulky, like getting up a free sub on a turn that your opponent wants to play passive can kind of just win you the game, right? Because now they have to break the sub before they're able to deal damage. And that can be like really crucial in a lot of different matchups. And also, once Substitute gets up, it exerts pressure. And another thing that's good about Substitute is in open team sheet, it exerts a lot of pressure. Because now that your opponent knows that if they give you any free turns, they can you can get a free sub up, which might cause them to play a little bit more aggressive than they want to, which can kind of play into your hands, right? So just keep that in mind when using Substitute. It is a really good move. It does take, you know, I think 1/4 of your health. So combining it with Leftovers is really good because you can Protect, Stall, and then get that health back that you use for your Substitute. So Substitute functions really good with Leftovers and Protect. It's almost like a match made in heaven, right? Of course, Landorus Eye did it differently because it always carries the Life Orb, but it doesn't take chip, right? So Substitute is still good for like something that's pressuring like a lot of offense. But Substitute, like I said, it's really good on a lot of different offensive teams, and it can single-handedly win you games, right? Next on our honorable mention is going to be Priority. So Priority is very crucial. Like why it's not required because you have a lot of teams that don't need Priority because you have like bulky mons. It's still really good, and by Priority I mean moves that give you a bonus in your speed that make you go first, right? That's not necessarily like speed control. So think of things like Aqua Jet, right? Think of things like Extreme Speed, which is you know, +2 Priority, so it's moving even faster than Aqua Jet. And you got things like Sucker Punch, which, you know, makes King Gambit really threatening because it can hit you with a Sucker Punch. In the previous format, you had things like Thunderclap from Raging Bolt. Just these mon. Let's Dragonite. Let's go Dragonite. Dragonite's a famous user of Extreme Speed. Then you have Aqua Jet on like Basculesian again. It's very famous for using that. Of course, you have Jet Punch from Palafin, which is a signature move. I do think Jet Punch is going to be distributed more in like the next generation. But for right now, Palafin's the only one that gets Jet Punch, right? And it's just like a boosted Aqua Jet, and this is really good. And you have Sucker Punch from King Gambit, right? Well, let's just type King Gambit in. Right, so priority lets you just even if they have tailwind up, even if they're on like they have a weather control ability where they're able to boost their speed with like Swift Swim or Swift Swim, or what else is the other Slush Rush, right? Slush Rush, or even the ones that work in the sand like Chlorophyll that is in the sun, or the one in the sand. It's just really good at moving first, right? Sometimes a lot of Pokemon may be like low HP, and being able to like pick them off of priority moves, especially with E-Speed, like, you know, doing a lot of damage with Terra Normal. We all know what this is famous for, right? But just being able to pick off low health mons is just really valuable in a format when things can be really bulky, and you stop things from having the ability to heal up when you're able to remove them from the field before they can attack, right? So priority is really good. Like I said, it's not required on every single team, but I do think that at least having like one priority move or one priority user on your team can set you up to be successful in VGC. All right, so next we have, just going down my list right here, we have recovery. So again, recovery is one of those things where it's not required to win, but if you have it, you'll love it that you have it, right? And recovery can be items too, but for the sake of the video, we're just gonna go with moves. So things like recover, which, you know, pretty much a mascot for recovery. Recover is the main thing. You have things like, let's see, recover from Garganacle. That's funny, Gordingo gets recovered, but nobody really runs recover on Gordingo because they always have leftovers. But that's pretty cool. Things like Moonlight. Let's think of Umbreon or Caflable. Caflable most likely won't be carrying Moonlight in this format, but let's think of Umbreon. Umbreon with Moonlight. And then you have things like, what are some other recovery moves? Roost. So Roost is a really popular recovery move that you might see on something like Corviknight. So recovery just allows you to have a lot of sustaining ability on the field, especially like Garganacle. Like recovery is like almost required for this set, unless you're running like some unorthodox set, right? Just recover is so good with this thing because it's so hard to knock out, and then just giving it a free turn to heal back up can be like threatening, right? Especially same thing with Corviknight. You go for a Roost where you have like an iron defense up, just like your opponent worked you all the way down to finally try to KO you with all those defensive boosts. Then you just Roost all that damage off. And Roost is really cool because it also drops your flying typing, so you kind of remove like a weakness. Like you won't be weak to like electric, right? Keep in mind that you can be hit by ground type attacks when you Roost, after you Roost, but you know, before then you're able to, you know, take away some of your super effective damage. Like at this point, Corviknight resists like rock and take neutral damage from electric type attacks. And same with ice, it'll take reduced damage from ice type attacks once you drop the flying type coverage. So Roost is really cool, and it's just able to, you know, really heal your Pokemon off. And I think that healing is essential for a lot of like games that, you know, take a long time to finish. And it also causes games to take a long time to finish. But sometimes your opponent may just not have enough damage to completely knock out your mons, and just getting a recover off can just be, you know, so threatening to them. And just pretty much I've seen people just quit when they see that you have a recovery item after they've done so much work to work your health down, right? So it's really good in my opinion. Like I said, it's not required to win every game, but having recovery on your team is also like a really good way to be successful in VGC. All right, so the next, and I believe is our last honorable mention, is gonna be screens. So screens, like again, they're not necessary, but when you have them, or if your team is built around them, it's really good. So screens, think of Grimmsnarl, which one of our famous screen users. You also have Alolan Ninetales, right? Which can set up Aurora Veil, which you need the snow to be up, but it sets up both screens at the same time, which is really good. Like screens are able to cut any damage that you take in half. And the only thing that can really go through screens are like Brick Break, or like specific moves like Raging Bull that can break through screens, or you have something like Urshifu, right? But Urshifu's not in the format right now. So screens are very valuable, right? And I think that Grimmsnarl is not being used enough. I think as the format goes on, you're going to see a lot more Grimmsnarl because the power level is a lot lower. So reducing the damage that you're taking is just that much more, you know, important, because certain mons that like restricted and powerful mons like Urshifu, Landorus, like these mons, even when you put up Reflect and Light Screen, they're still like dealing a lot of damage, right? But now like damage mitigation is going to be so huge, and I think Grimmsnarl is actually going to have a really good place in this format. But screens are really, really good. But next, we're going to go into our top 5, which I feel like you really need to have these on every single team if you really want to find success in VGC. So the first thing, or the first category I want to go with, is disruption. So disruption can consist of a couple of things, right? The first thing that comes to mind is taunt. So taunt is able to stop a lot of setup, stop things from going up like trick room, stop users from using tailwind if you have prankster with your taunt, and just stop setup moves in general. Also stops things from being able to protect, right? I've seen a lot of good players actually go for taunt, not to stop setup, but just to prevent something from protecting, so that they can bring something in the back to, you know, be able to KO it, since that Pokemon can't protect anymore. It just takes away a lot of your opponent's options, right? And taunt is so good. I don't think that you have to have taunt, but you have to have some type of disruptive move on your team. So if it's not taunt, from like, let's say, Incineroar is also a good taunter. Incineroar is like the best support Pokemon because it does a lot of these things well. But you also have Encore, right? When you hear Encore is also disruptive. Encore forces your opponent to not want to protect or to go for uncomfortable switches, right? And when we think of Encore, we think of the best Encore use going to be Whimsicott. There is a few Encore users that don't use priority, like Ninetales and things like that. But Whimsicott's going to be the best Encore. This single-handedly prevents your opponent from wanting to go for protect. And if they do protect, they know that they have to switch or they're going to get Encored into it, right? As well as if they set up in front of Whimsicott, then you can Encore them in the setup. And then they have to hard switch because they can just never attack from that point. Let's say that you have a Volcarona and you go for Quiver Dance, right? And they switch in Whimsicott on the turn, you go for Quiver Dance. Whimsicott can Encore you in the Quiver Dance, and now while your Volcarona is going to get boosted up, they just can never attack with it, and then it's free to be attacked by your opponent's other mons. Especially if you have a physical attacker, you can really punish like a Quiver Dance, right? So Encore is really good at punishing. The other move that's really good at removing, that's good at disruption, is going to be Haze. So think of Haze, Palafin, and Haze like Primarina. Primarina is probably the most common Haze user right now. Haze is really good, especially like it's the best counter into Dondozo, right? You have things like Clear Smog, Amoonguss, but it's not guaranteed to, you know, remove the boost, as well as Torkoal, right? It's not guaranteed to remove the boost if they go for like Terra Steel on the Dondozo, which can counter this Amoonguss, but Haze always removes the boost from Dondozo. So Haze is a very threatening move from it. Also, Murkrow, sorry about that. Murkrow, while it's not as common as Primarina, it is going to be a common user of Haze, right? So these disruptive moves are just very good and just, you know, stopping your opponent from being able to set up and play the game the way they want to play it, right? A lot of their teams might consist of being able to sweep and like setting up something to, you know, have a lot of boost, and these just kind of punish it, right? It's especially Haze. Haze is like when you get your, you know, your King Gamma to like +5, or you get your Volcarona with like 3 Quiver Dances up and you're ready to sweep your team, and they just come in and just Haze all your boost away. It just feels really bad, right? So it's a really good disruptive move, like also Clear Smog is as well. But Encore, Haze, and Taunt, I believe, are like, you know, your best disruptive moves. And I think that you need to have at least one of the 3 on every single team that you build in Regulation H if you really want to find success. Because like I told you with the Grimmsnarl screens, this format is going to be very bulky, and a lot of people are going to be wanting to increase the damage of their attacks so that they can pick up one-hit KOs, right? And a way to prevent that is with Encore, Taunt, and Haze. So disruptive moves are going to be really good, or disruption in general is going to be really good for finding success in this format. So our next category, which is going to be number 2. Well, I guess we could say that was number 5. So let's redo that. It's not really in any order yet. We're going to just keep it in this because we're not doing this in any order, even though it's 5 of them. It's not like, you know, the top 5. This is just 5 I feel that you need to have on every single team. So the second one that we're going to go over is going to be speed control. So speed control, you have to have this on your team or else you just pretty much lose. Unless you have one of those balanced teams that really like plays with bulk and pivoting. And if you have really good pivoting and a lot of good switching and stuff like that, you don't necessarily need speed control. But I think that speed control is how you find success in this format. And speed control consists of Trick Room, which is really good. Let's say Hatterene, you're able to reverse the dimensions and allow, you know, the slower mons like Hatterene, Torkoal, Indeedee, Armarouge, all these Pokemon get to move first now that they're in Trick Room, right? As well as Tailwind. So Tailwind is similar to Trick Room, but instead of making the slower Pokemon goes first, this doubles the speed of only your side of the field, but the speed of your Pokemon, right? So imagine that, you know, you're getting outsped, let's say a Dragapult. a Dragapult is able to outspeed you. It's really fast, right? And it's gonna one hit KO your Salamence with Dragon Darts, right? It's a Choice Band Dragonite. It tears in the dragon, and Dragon Darts are gonna kill your Salamence because you get outsped. If you go for like Tailwind with your Whimsicott, which is a priority user, and let's just say Whimsicott because it's gonna be one of the monsters that use Tailwind the most. It goes for Tailwind, right? Now your Salamence is able to go for like that Draco Meteor into the Dragapult. Now because you outspeed it, because your speed is doubled, right? And now you outspeed that Dragapult, you're able to one hit KO it, right? So that's how good Tailwind is. Tailwind can literally, you know, turn the game on its head, and teams have to have specific counters in the Tailwind, or you can kind of just get ran over by all your Pokemon getting outsped and then just removed from the game, right? So Tailwind is something that you necessarily that you really have to have counters for, and it's really good to have some type of speed control, whether it's Trick Room or Tailwind on this team. Some mentions, some honorable mentions for speed control that are going to include Icy Wind. While it's not as good as Trick Room and Tailwind, it's still really good for like mid speed type mons. And going for like Icy Wind when you have like a Pelipper, Icy Wind and something down, and allowing like more middling speed mons like Primarina to outspeed, you know, bigger threats is just really good as well. So you got Icy Wind from things like, you know, Weavile, and you have Electroweb, which is not really that many good Electroweb users in the format right now. I guess the best one would be Electabuzz. Electabuzz is a bulky Electroweb user that lowers the speed so that it allows his teammates to have success. So Icy Wind and Electroweb are also really good at speed control. It may be another speed control item that I may be missing that you guys, you know, bring up in the or Thunder Wave. So Thunder Wave is one of them. But if you guys can think of anything else, you can go ahead and leave it down in the comments just to help out some people who are looking for some other speed control options other than these, right? But Thunder Wave is also really good. It's funny that the Godingo gets Thunder Wave, right? We never see that, but it does get access to it. But Thunder Wave, you know, Electroweb, Icy Wind, Tailwind, and Trick Room. You need to have at least one of these on your team so that in the event that, you know, you're going up against a team that you have a bad matchup in, you need to be able to move first to outspeed them so you can deal more damage before they can hit you. The other good thing about speed control is it takes a lot of the RNG out of the game that's not in your favor, right? If you're moving first, you're more likely to get more effects done to your opponent than if you're moving last. If you're always going last, then you're more subject to getting RNG, whether it's like a random Thunderbolt paralysis or a Hurricane confusion, right? This stuff happens to you because you're going second, and if you're going second, then you have the option of being fully paralyzed or confused and hitting yourself. So just being able to move first cuts back on some of the RNG that you'll experience, especially when you're removing your opponent's pieces from the field. So speed control really does help reduce RNG. So if you really are someone that's suffering from RNG in Regulation H, think of adding some type of speed control to your team so that you can move first, and that way you can cut back on some of that RNG. All right, so next we have our third category, which is going to be Fake Out. Now, Fake Out, while it does seem like if you're like a singles player, it's not really that good unless you just have something that is really strong and just deal chip damage. But Fake Out is so huge for VGC. Think of Rillaboom, think of Incineroar, think of, you know, a lot of different mons hitting on top, right? Like, these are really common Fake Out users, right? And Fake Out is just so strong on these mons because it gives you free turns. It allows you to help set up like sweepers, and also it gives you like turns if you need to stall out like Tailwind, you want to stall out like Trick Room. It just gives you opportunities to give you breathing room, right? And breathing room is something huge in a format where, you know, in a game where VGC, where the games are not as long as singles, and you need some time to like slow your opponent down or like keep them off you for turns where you're able to set up or switch something out. And Fake Out really does allow you to do that. I think that Fake Out is absolutely required on every single team. Some teams are able to thrive without Fake Out, but if you really want to find success in VGC, you need to have Fake Out. Fake Out is very good, and even though ghost types are immune to it, if they don't have a ghost type and they go for a Ghost Terror, Fake Out does force out a lot of Ghost Terrors, which is if you're able to play around them tearing into Ghost, or you know they're going to tear into Ghost, now you're able to play the game without your opponent having their terrestrialization for the rest of the match, right? Which can also be really good, and that's just the pressure that Fake Out puts on. So Fake Out is very good, and I really do think that it's required in order to find success in VGC, or at least Regulation H as well. Our next category is going to be Redirection. So Redirection is so good. I cannot understate how good Redirection is. If you think about, you know, Pachirisu that won the, what was it, 2014 or 2015? I believe it was 2015 or 2014. I know it was one of those years. Pachirisu won Worlds. It won Worlds largely in part due to Follow Me. So Follow Me is really good. If you think about Conflable, you think of Mousehold. Mousehold, the Mouse Ape strategy is so strong, not only because Mousehold has Friend Guard and gets beat up, it's because it has Follow Me, so it's able to protect Annihilate and his teammates from taking damage, right? And Mousehold is very hard to knock out in one hit, especially when it's invested into its defenses. So Follow Me is very good. Also, you have Rage Powder. Rage Powder is also good as well. Some mons do not get access to Follow Me, so Rage Powder is like the second best thing. The reason it's not as good as Follows Me is because grass types ignore Rage Powder because it's a powder-based move, and also Safety Goggles allows you, or Grass Terror can allow you to ignore Rage Powder. So it has a lot of counterplay to it, and it's not as much counterplay as to Follow Me. Follow Me, the only counterplay to it is like Stalwart from Duraludon and Archaludon, right? But Rage Powder, if they don't have proper things to be able to be immune to Rage Powder, like it's so pivotal in order to allow Amoonguss to be targeted to give your teammate free turns, right? And something like Regenerator with Rage Powder is really good because now all the damage that you took with a Citrus Berry, you're able to heal all that stuff back and then switch out and then come back in and just go for more Regenerator procs, right? And more Rage Powders. So Amoonguss is a really good pivot and a really good user of Rage Powder. And also, it also puts on pressure with Spore. So when it comes to Amoonguss, you have to think whether they're going to Spore you or whether they're going to go for Rage Powder, right? Or they can protect and Spore you, or they can attack and Rage Powder, right? And those mind games, which is something that makes Amoonguss like really good. And it's because it offers like, Spore pressure as well as Rage Powder. I would consider Spore as something that you should have on every team or something that puts monsters to sleep. It's also considered a disruptive, right? So we can go back to like Disruption, and then we can put like something like Spore on there too, because Amoonguss gets Spore. So I would consider Spore under the Disruption category, right? You really do need Disruption, but I don't think it's necessary to have Spore on every team because there's a lot of teams that find success without having to put you to sleep, right? But it is considered Disruption. But back to Redirection. Redirection doesn't only consist of Rage Powder and Follow Me. It also Storm Drain. Think of how good Gastrodon is, right? Gastrodon in like restricted formats, or just being able to, redirect water attacks and get a special attack boost off of it, as well as Lightning Rod. There may be another one that I'm forgetting, but these are the first two that come to mind. Raichu is like the most common user of this. Just being able to just redirect things into you so that your teammate is safe from like a super effective attack is just very pivotal for games. But I cannot understate how good redirection is. Like I said, most likely these are going to be kind of niche situations, but almost all the best teams that you're going to see are going to have some form of Rage Powder or Follow Me on their team just to be able to protect their sweepers, right? And every team, I believe, needs sweepers, and the best way to protect them is to have redirection, right? A bulky redirection user. So I absolutely think that you need to have redirection on your team if you want to find success in VGC. The last category that we're going to go over, this is going to be our fifth category. And like I said, these are not in any order. These are just 5 things I believe that you need to have success in VGC. But this one is huge, and it's not as obvious because you might not have thought about it, especially if you're someone that plays a lot of singles and you're coming over to the VGC world or you're new. I know that when I first started playing VGC, I used to run my entire team without using this move, right? But now that I've become a lot better at the game and I want to, bring new people into the game, one of the main moves that you need to have on your team is very simple, but it's going to be Protect. And you might be like, Protect? Why do I need that? Protect allows for so many different mind games. Every mon can learn it. And there's also a move called Detect as well, which is like the fighting variant of it. But they pretty much do the same thing, right? Detect is a little bit more optimal if you do have it. And the reason people run Detect over Protect is for the simple fact that if a Pokemon has Imprison plus Protect, they're going to imprison you. But they usually don't have Imprison plus Detect, right? Because that's a fighting move and Imprison is a psychic move. So they usually don't have those on the same set. Or if they do, it's very rare that they have both, right? But Detect can't be imprisoned that easily, while Protect can be easily imprisoned if the imprisoned user is carrying it, right? But other than that, that's a very rare circumstance. Most imprisoned users don't have enough space on their move slots to fit Protect, so you don't usually have to worry about that. But Protect is so good because it causes a lot of lines. Like even think about Blaziken, right? Blaziken is gonna get outsped by, let's say, Palafin just came back in, and well, Palafin's not a good idea. Let's think of a water type that can one-shot Blaziken, because Palafin has Jet Punch. Let's think of a water type that doesn't have like priority. Dondozo. Dondozo's gonna one-shot your Blaziken with a Wave Crash, right? And you really want to be able to go first. This Dondozo is at like maybe 30%, and Blaziken has enough power to one-shot it. Let's say you have like a Thunder Punch or something, right? Blaziken, usually, while it's gonna get outsped by Dondozo, you go for Protect now, and you're safe, and you get that speed boost. So on the next turn, you go for Wave Crash, or you go for Thunder Punch, and then you knock out that Dondozo, and you're able to get that KO that you couldn't get before if you didn't have Protect to stall out your speed boost, right? That's what Protect can offer you. Protect also, especially in VGC, your opponent has to correctly target your opponent's slot, right? So I would say it's mandatory that you should have at least 3 Protects on every team that you build. I've seen some teams that maybe carry 1 Protect and find success, or maybe no Protects, but it's very rare, right? Most of the best teams that you're going to see in VGC, they always have Protect on them, right? And Protect just causes mind games, because at any point in any given game, you can protect 1 slot, and if your opponent doubles that slot, that gives your other Pokemon a free turn to do whatever it wants. And sometimes in a lot of end games, a lot of games come down to 50-50 guessing, whether it's you need to attack 1 Mon and KO at least one of your opponent's Mons, and you have to select the correct one. If you select wrong and you target 1 slot and the other one attacks, then you lose the game, right? And if you didn't have Protect, then those mind games aren't there, right? Then your opponent can freely win the game because it knows who it can target, because the other Mon can't Protect. So Protect just causes a lot of really good, strong gameplay. And also think of like Trick Room. You need to stall out your opponent's Trick Room before you don't get swept, or stall out their Tailwind. Just like Fake Out helps you stall those things out, Protect is also a really good tool. And if you use Protect in combination with Fake Out, then that helps you like really stall out a lot of oppressive teams that are trying to like really win the game really quickly, or just sweep you under like Trick Room, right? And it's very hard to, like, you hear a lot of content creators or PokeTubers, or they're in a match and they'll be like, well, I'm using this team, or I'm in Trick Room, but I don't have any Protect, so I can't really do anything besides swapping. And now thinking, if you have Protect, Fake Out, and the ability to swap because you have good switches, now you can successfully stall out like a lot of like Trick Room and Tailwind teams. So Protect is a huge proponent of that, and I think that it's absolutely necessary on every single team that you build to at least mandatory have 3 Protects. If you can fit 6 on there with all 6 of your Pokemon having Protect, then you're gaming, right? But sometimes you want to use choice items, you want to use Assault Vest that fit really good with some of your mons, like our Chaladon is a user of Assault Vest, and Assault Vest prevents you from being able to click status moves. So our Chaladon actually loves to have the Assault Vest because it corrects its hold on, let me get our Chaladon. There we go. It corrects its special defense, because its special defense is really low. So our Chaladon really likes to run Assault Vest, but when you run this, you can't click Protect, right? So that may be a case where you might have a Protect user, you might have a team full of Protects, except your Assault Vest user. Another thing is like Choice Scarf Mons. So let's say like Dragapult is known for having Choice Band. So it usually can't Protect, right? Because when you have a choice item, while you can run Protect and still click it, it's not like Assault Vest, where Assault Vest you can't click any moves that aren't damaging, period. But Choice Band, you can still click status moves, right? But it's just not common. But I've seen some Flutter Mane run like Choice Specs and run like Protect on that, just to have an option to be able to still Protect, and your opponent has to respect that, right? But you always have to switch the next turn, which can cause you to be kind of behind if they call your Protect. But you can run status moves, but it's just not common. But Choice Band, like, these things keep you from being able to run Protect on your teams. But if you can fit Protect, like I said, I think you need to have 3 out of 6 Protects. If you have 4 or 5, then you're doing really well, because it just gives you more defensive synergy with each one of your teams, and it allows for a lot of setup. Like think of Leftovers. Like I told you, Leftovers with Substitute. Just having Protect allows you to safely get up, all that HP back, and it's turns that you're not taking damage, which allows you to have a lot of longevity on those really bulky Pokemon that thrive on the healing. So if you haven't ever used Protect, I would consider it. Like I said, when I first started playing VGC and Scarlet and Violet, I used to run a full team on a ladder with all my mines having like damaging moves and like a lot of coverage moves and no Protects, right? And I would go against someone that has Protects and I just can't touch them. And it used to be so frustrating, because I'd be wanting them to just play straight up and just go all attacks like I am. But the reality is people don't have to play like that. When you're playing VGC, they don't have to always attack you. They can play defensive, right? And having protect and detect are very good options for having, you know, that defensive synergy, which causes your opponent to like waste a lot of their attacks. But that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope this was able to help you out on different ways to find some success in VGC. Like I said, if you are someone who's trying to get better in it, then you should definitely consider these 5 categories of moves, or these 5 types of moves, right? And put them on each one of your teams, and just watch your wins go up from that point. And when you do start to win more, just come back and give your boy, you know, a like on the video, or leave a comment saying that it really helped you out. But thanks for watching this video. If you guys like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe for me, turn those post notifications, and I will catch you in the next one. All right, deuces.